Welcome everyone, Marcelo is my name. I am the niche fragrance collector and I have discovered that I love rose. You would think that as a man I would love lavender, cedarwood, aromatics, dry woods, all that sort of stuff. But in fact, the rose note is one, as I've gone through my collection, that is prevalent. And this is only a part of it. There's more behind me. There's more to the side. Rose in a female fragrance has been there for a very long time. The truth is, rose in a masculine fragrance has also been there for a very long time. Around the 1950s and 60s, all of a sudden, masculine fragrance needed to be aromatic or dry woods. But prior to that, rose was actually also incorporated into men's fragrances. I met with the perfumer Luca Maffei. I asked him the question, what are your favorite notes to work with when it comes to constructing a fragrance? He said 3. Cashmerean is his number 1. It's an aroma chemical. Number 2, iris. Number 3, the rose. He said that wherever he can, every creation he makes, he wants to make sure that he includes these 3 notes. The rose is considered as the queen of flowers because it blends so easily, whether it's citrus, woods, or other florals. The other reason is that it is so nuanced. You think a rose is just a rose, but in fact, and we'll discover this in more detail, rose can be so many different things, and the perfumer can work that rose to accent so many different facets of it, whether it's citrus, whether it's spicy, it can be ambery, it could be sweet, it can be green, and it could be that just glorious floral note. But all of these elements are always rose-like. Like wine, the rose profile varies depending on the region. So if you take the Rosa Damascena from Morocco, you'll find that it has a spicy hay-like nuance to it, whereas the same Rosa Damascena, but this time from Turkey, is now green and fruity-like. Then you have the glorious rose from the south of France, in Grasse, the Rosa centifolia. Take Radical Rose as the example, and that is now just robust and glorious. It's used quite regularly within perfumery. The Rose centifolia and the Damascene rose are the 2 key roses that are used across a lot of the perfumes that we enjoy. There's another rose, which is the Rose de Taif. These photos here, this is Julien Rasquinet. Currently, that rose is in harvest. It's actually in Saudi Arabia, in the mountains. And supposedly the rose there, because of the high altitude, it has a lightness to it, it has a powderiness to it, but an intensity. There's a beautiful fragrance by Luca Maffei called Rose de Taif. If you want a beautiful feminine floral rose, that fragrance there is absolute magic. Today, I'm not going to talk about Radical Rose, but if you'd like to know more about that particular fragrance, have a look at this episode. I did go into a lot more detail as to where the rose came from, how was the rose used, etc. But if you would like a beautiful, nuanced rose with all its different facets, that fragrance there is exceptional. Today, what I want to do is cover off from a floral, fruity element of the rose all the way across to a very deep, dark rose. All right, let me begin the journey on all things rose. This one here, Juan Manuel, by the fragrance house Fuella, an Argentinian brand, is an incredible place to start. Now, just so you know, every one of these fragrances, masculine or feminine. I wear this all the time, but Sandra wears this, my wife. I've sprayed this on my nieces who are around their mid-20s. They love this fragrance. I even sprayed it on my 8-year-old nephew who is just crazy about perfume. His eyes lit up as he smelled this. What I love about this fragrance, boys, I need you to test this fragrance out. This is in tribute to a gentleman by the name of Juan Manuel de Rosas. Now, according to myth, he was a very well-groomed governor of Argentina around 1829. When I say governor, I mean dictator. Just let's keep that clear. At the end of the day, he was South American. Was he wearing rose? Don't know, but the fact that his name was Juan Manuel de Rosas, this is the reason why the perfumer, Julian Badel, created this fragrance in memory or in tribute to him. Just as a point of reference, yes, he was a dictator, but during his reign, or when he was the governor, the law and order in the city was immaculate. There was a lot of corruption prior to that. When he came in, a little bit of a beep, bop, boop, fixed things up, and there was no more trouble. What I love about this, it opens with a wonderful berry pink pepper element to it. There is a beautiful brightness, there's a joy, there's a happiness. This is a great fragrance for summertime, for spring, not necessarily for winter. It's very bright, very effervescent, and very energetic as a fragrance. It then migrates to this beautiful floral rose and finally goes into a more of a woody rose place. All the way through, you are detecting that rose component. I find that for me, I'm getting 8 hours plus on this particular fragrance. Its sillage and also projection is in the moderate. A man can comfortably wear this easy, very easy on a woman too. For boys who don't want any amped up component of florals, then I would recommend to you Black Rose by Zaharoff. This is a new inclusion in the collection. Let me just point out, this bottle is spectacular. It is so exquisite, so detailed. The black rose that's on there is gorgeous. Now, Black Rose, what's that in reference to? Let me just spray this baby first. Black Rose, what's in reference to? So in the town of Halfeti in Turkey, there is a black rose that grows there. The harvest is very small, but that rose has a very distinct profile to it. This is the rose that's being used here. So you're going to find that it doesn't have the overtly floral elements of what you're normally used to in a rose, or any of the sweetness or berry-like components to it. This is dark. This is masculine. I loved, as I first experienced this fragrance, the sense of power, the aromatic potency of the lavender as it exploded off me. I'm like, man, that feels strong, and it just has this vibrance to it. When I looked at the notes, I found out that there's no lavender in the fragrance. Pure inception in my brain. What there is on the opening is basil. Then you have cedarwood in the heart, and then finally cypriol in the base. I feel like those components there, and now when I say those things and I smell this, I'm like, oh yeah, it's basil. In that opening, there's a basil note. A green, sort of vibrant, aromatic. There is a beautiful rose scent that comes through, but it's toned down. It is a masculine rose now. There's no soft floral elements to this. In fact, it is bold. It's a rose with muscles, basically. The rose is distinct on skin. On the card, all I'm getting primarily are those very aromatic, woody components, but on skin, actually, I will spray it on skin. I was holding back, but this one here I lent to my nephew. I had to rip it out of his arms. This is one that he was wearing constantly. He's a 20-year-old boy. The rose, as I mentioned, has really been pulled back in place of the dry woods, the aromatic component of it. But on dry down, you are getting that beautiful rose coming through. I find that as you spray this fragrance, you get this wonderful aromatic blast. Vibrant, strong, confident. It moves to a spicy floral and finally settles to a woody rose. For me, the sillage and projection of this fragrance is enormous. It stays at a very confident high, and when you're gonna get comfortably 10 plus hours from this fragrance. So the value for money, both on the bottle, the design, the look, the potency and power of the fragrance is exceptional. Zaharoff, as always, over-delivers on quality and also on the actual fragrance itself. I had the privilege of going to Spain. We went to Madrid and Barcelona, and in both those locations, my wife and I enjoyed a flamenco show. I don't know if you've ever seen flamenco performers. The music, two, the way that they dance, the sensuality but aggressive nature, it's just incredible. This is an experience that you need to yes, you could watch it on YouTube or something like that, but to be in the room and to hear the guitar, to feel the presence in the space and to see their dancing and the way they move, there is nothing like seeing a flamenco live. And this is the rose of a dangerous flamenco. Such a beautiful descriptive name. If you haven't experienced this fragrance by Simone Androli, you need to run, not walk, to go and check this out. This is another one where the value for money when it comes to the performance of this fragrance, the way it moves and evolves, the size of the bottle is exceptional. I fell in love with this fragrance a few years back. There's a beautiful store here in Melbourne called Oillataguerre. My good friend and also business partner, Kevin, he recommended this to me, and I just love it. I'm actually wearing it today. I find that when this fragrance opens up, it has this boozy fruit component to it. It then moves to this cognac rose and finally settles into this very subtle rose oud combination. To say that this is a classic rose oud, I think you're missing, I'm going to say no. We'll talk about a classic rose oud lineup. For me, this one here, because of those dark fruits, because of that boozy element, even though there's no rum and there's no whiskey note in that opening, I do get this beautiful, as I said, a rose that's been drowned in this boozy rum or a cognac. Gorgeous fragrance. When it comes to its longevity, incredible, 10 plus hours. When it comes to its potency and power, projection, sillage, high to moderate, it has a lot of presence. I was recently wearing it again. I said to Sandra, my wife, what do you think of my fragrance? Now, she's not a big rose fan, and I'll come to that in just a second. There's irony in that comment. And she said to me, the fruit, the cherry note is very, very strong. There's no cherry in this fragrance. But again, it goes back to that boozy, fruity component to it. The oud has been toned down, so if you're afraid of oud, a great place to be. If you're afraid of overtly floral rose, also an incredible place to be. A man or a woman could wear this fragrance. A woman, absolutely resplendent. It would just emanate beauty, just danger, something glorious. And for a man, you would be glorious. Well, I know that I'm wearing it. It just feels perfect. This is a beautiful rose oud fruity combination that is absolutely divine. I know it's compared to More Than Words. Yes and no. So More Than Words, we don't know the actual notes, but we do detect, or I do detect, fruit notes on the opening. I find that this is a lot boozier, a lot more boozy, cognac, rum-like on that opening. It doesn't dry down to a very heavy oud, whereas I find that More Than Words is a very distinct oud note. Anyway, the balance is gorgeous. Big recommendation, run, don't walk. Go check this one out and put it on skin. On card is nice, but on skin, and as I said, I've been wearing it today, spectacular. So staying in line with that ambery, warm, sensual kind of rose, TABAC rose, forget about it. This is a masterpiece. This is by the incredibly talented Juan Rasquinet. I mentioned him earlier. He created this. Its companion is another fragrance which is called Ambre Soprano. And I'll come back to as to why that's important. This one. If you want something potent, if you want something luxurious, if you want something that is a head turner, if you want something that creates a sense, an aura around you of just divine and enticing, TABAC rose. This is another one where if you're afraid of that rose note being prevalent in your fragrance, you'll find that the balance here is extraordinary. This used to be my fragrance. Sandra, my wife, has claimed it as her own. I smell this, and as I sprayed it before, and it's her. It just emanates this beautiful beauty from this fragrance. However, having said that, a man can wear it. But as I mentioned before, Juan Rasquinet did create a companion fragrance to this, which is Ambre Soprano. Now that one there is a more masculine leaning. Similar notes on the opening. The difference is the dry down has now a saffron leather suede note, whereas the dry down here is rose tobacco-like. This is a glorious winter fragrance or a cool summer evening. You're gonna get 12 plus hours. No problems at all. The projection on this is exceptionally high. So I think there's high and then exceptionally high. This falls in that category. When this fragrance opens up, it has a beautiful plum honey note that just emerges. Instant seduction right there. It then migrates to a very sweet floral, in particular rose. That rose note begins to emerge. Finally, it dries down to this glorious, fragrant rose, slight tobacco earthiness in there. Honey is detected in there. I mentioned that this has become Sandra's fragrance. She was wearing it at church one Sunday, and some young teenage girls, friends of the family, were like, you smell amazing, Sandra, you smell amazing. She said to them, look, next week I'll bring TABAC Rose and you guys can have a spray and see what you like. They know that Sandra is the niche fragrance collector's wife, so these requests are common. Now, I remember walking through the building and I could smell TABAC Rose everywhere. I found out that she was spraying everybody, and what would happen, it was like a domino effect. One person would be sprayed and they're like, oh my gosh, they would walk past somebody else and they're like, whoa, what are you wearing? Oh, Sandra's spraying. They would get a spray. So 10-year-olds to 100-year-olds were wearing TABAC Rose that particular day. And I'm talking from men all the way to young ladies, man, woman, child, pure magic. For those who like more of a woody rose, then let me recommend to you, and if you notice, I'm not even gonna spray on, pop. On card, I love this. This is a new find. The brand is called Une Nuit Nomade. French house. They're all about nomadic exploration. They assign, I guess, an olfactory signature to either a place or a time. In this case here, the fragrance is called Click Song. This fragrance is in homage to the singer Miriam Makeba. She was a South African woman during the time of apartheid who was forced to flee. She created music with, even though this was, I'm sure, hard times, and these were sad times for her and her people, she created music with such a joyful sound. There's a song called Pata Pata. I actually thought, I've heard this sound before, or this song before, I thought it was a Latino song. There's a perfumer called Tito Puentes, and he created a cha-cha with Pata Pata. But in fact, it is Miriam's song. And the reason why this fragrance is called Click Song is that it incorporated her language, the click sound in the way that they speak. The fragrance is a celebration of rose, but it's wrapped around patchouli. For those who know me, I'm a patchouli fiend. I love anything to do with patchouli, whether it's the woody element, whether it's the camphorous, the more mildewy, the dampness of it, the sweetness. And I feel that this is now this glorious celebration between a rose and a patchouli note. And look, the way I describe it is it's a glorious rose wrapped around this patchouli leaf. When this fragrance opens up, it has this very unique boozy vanilla. Interestingly, there is no boozy whiskey or rum note in there, but I'm detecting this wonderful, luxurious boozy note wrapped around vanilla. It then moves across to a very dry floral, that rose and patchouli combination, and finally settles into a woody floral. All the way through, I am creating internally the yummy sounds. I just love every aspect of this particular fragrance. I love the dry camphorous component supported by the patchouli, but with that glorious rose. That rose is so distinct and it's so present. If I compare Juan Manuel, a fruity rose. That rose is very present, actually on skin. Just this honey, sweet vanilla, patchouli, rose. My recommendation again is this is another one that you should test on skin, see how it performs for you. You have the black rose here, very aromatic, very dry woods, whereas here it's still a dry woody rose, but there are these boozy sweet elements to it. And it's interesting, if you compare these two here together, the plum honey-like component of TABAC Rose with a gentle rose coming through versus that patchouli on skin. Just glorious, just absolutely glorious. Big recommendation. I find that for me, I get 8 hours plus with its sillage and projection in that moderate and very confident moderate. Everybody who's around me is detecting the fragrance and I'm smelling it the whole way through. Next one, Alexandria 2. I'm sure you saw the bottle and you're thinking, okay, what's he gonna say about this? Have you ever had a friend where you haven't seen that friend in a very long time, but the moment you're in the company of this friend, there's a sense of stillness, there's a sense of grounding, and you don't even have to say anything. You just have to be in the presence of this individual. But this individual knows who you are. You just feel safety, you feel strength, you feel that this person knows you. Alexandria 2. I made the audacious claim years ago. A friend had come over for dinner. I was giving her some samples, try this, try that. And I came to a sample of Alexandria 2. And I said to her, take this one, this will connect you to the universe. My wife was there. I think her eyes hit the back of her head What are you talking about? But if you know, you understand. This fragrance, I don't know what it is. And maybe it's something that's in there that just resonates with my soul. I have a good collection of fragrances. I like to rotate every day something different. But the moment I return back, and in particular as I was preparing for today, and spray and experience, there's a peace, there's a joy, there's a connection to the universe. This fragrance has so many beautiful notes. Loation oud, Bulgarian rose, vanilla, musk, lavender, green apple, cedarwood. Yet, to say all these particular notes, I think not compromises, but simplifies what this fragrance is about. All these notes, I don't ever detect the loation, the vanilla. People say I can smell a green apple. I have never smelt that green apple. For me, all of this comes together to create Alexandria 2. This is a fragrance that, to look at notes, you're not going to really appreciate what we're actually talking about. It's not until you put it on skin. Card is beautiful, by the way. Card, you're getting an element, but on skin, and you and your skin chemistry and the fragrance, forget about it. It's something that needs to be experienced. It is a rose. I mean, if we want to simplify it, you want to compress it, it is a rose oud fragrance, but there's more than just rose and oud going on. When it comes to performance and presence, for me, 12 plus hours, actually, I'm going to say it's more than that. If I spray in the day, like today, I already know this will be with me till tomorrow morning. I'm going to wake up, I'll smell Alexandria 2. I'll go one more in preparation. I had sprayed all the different fragrances. I had showered. The one that stayed on my skin was Alexandria 2. Potent and present is what this fragrance is. When it comes to its projection and sillage, you're in the high again. I allocated one to ultra high or excessively high. That's where you are also with Alexandria 2. Big recommendation, guys. Wrapping this up, and not that this is the best, just to be clear, every single one of these I adore, I absolutely love, I enjoy wearing, but going from a very bright, happy, joyous to a very dark rose is what the mission was. And again, not to be wasted on a card, this is a skin glorious fragrance. Two things crossed my mind for those who've seen the movie Dune. I actually feel that the planet of Arrakis smells like this. There's that one scene where you see the sand blowing and you see the sparkle of the spice. And actually I saw Dune and I thought, oh, that's rose incense. That's what that smells like. And then I actually went to watch Dune 2 and I wore it on my hand. And as that scene happens, I smelt my hand or smelt where I had sprayed and I'm like, whoa, this is Arrakis. There's a dusty, dry heat that you feel from the fragrance, but there's this very gentle rose. There's this rose that just sort of, and literally like that scene where you see the sparkle of the spice flashing through, the rose does the same thing. It does this sparkle that moves through in amongst the incense and the dustiness and the heat that I feel that this fragrance emanates. The second thing that it reminds me of is this beautiful church in Rome. In fact, it's in Trastevere, so you cross over the Tiber River. It's called Chiesa di Santa Maria della Scala. For some reason, now most churches in Rome have a beautiful mixture of wood from the wood paneling and things of that nature, the incense. In this case here, I remember walking in, and for me, this fragrance embodies both this floral rose, but that incense that I don't know whether there was some flowers, from a memory point of view, I can't remember whether I saw roses or anything of that nature, but I know that when I sprayed this, it took me to this church in Trastevere. Now there's nothing in particular about this church. It's not like one of the iconic churches of Rome. Mind you, there's like 4,000 of them in Rome. But because of the incense, there is a sacred nature to the fragrance. And I know that sounds a bit excessive. I get it. It's a perfume, but smells do trigger something in our memory, it creates some sort of presence within us. For me, when this fragrance opens up, it has this beautiful sweet incense. It then migrates to a dusty floral, and finally on the dry down, it is very distinct. Rose, incense, fragrance, the name says it all. 12 plus hours with its projection and sillage in the super high also. Everybody will know that you're wearing the sacred and meditative fragrance that is rose incense. Actually, for those who don't like or are not comfortable with incense, I'd recommend you check this one out. You'll find that the balance between the rose, these beautiful incense note, is actually absolutely incredibly divine. Massive recommendation. And there you have it, beautiful rose fragrances. I could probably do about 3 more episodes covering 7 more rose fragrances that I love. It was very hard for me to not include Radical Rose. The reason why I did that is you have heard more than enough times that Radical Rose is just a glorious fragrance that, as a minimum, everybody really needs to own. Having said that though, I do recommend to you Juan Manuel as a wonderful contender in that same space. Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that. I look forward to reading your comments and finding out what is your favorite rose fragrance, and if you've tested any of these, and what are your thoughts against them. We'll see you guys all on the next episode.